Oh, I haven't got any bastard ice cubes, for fuck's... Oh, well.
Plastic ice cubes.
What?
Plastic ice cubes?
Bastard ice cubes, you...
Oh. I thought you had those, like, ice cubes which you, like, put in and you can reuse.
What?
You know, I've come across those.
Oh, you're making that up.
No, they're like... I don't know if they are actually plastic, but they're like ice. They're ice cube shaped. And you get them out as you need your drink to cool down. But then you just wash them and you just pop it back in the freezer again.
Great.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Mayor?
50 milliliters.
I've not seen them before, but
I think I need a smaller glass.
I can imagine they exist.
Well, I thought they were like pretty. I feel like if you go into like a Tesco, you could buy them.
Oh, yes. I actually might have some. Now that I think about it,
his memory's so bad.
I was still processing the words you were throwing at me.
Yeah, no. Me and OT have discussed this. We don't think your memory's bad. We think that you just don't pay attention to anything that we say.
Yeah, I think that must be it. If I hear a pause, I know that maybe I'm expected to speak, but so I'm really just listening for pauses. I'm not even listening to what you're saying.
You've realised after knowing us for an extensive amount of time that most of what we say is not worth retaining.
Exactly.
And to be fair, you're not wrong. Good morning and welcome to the Hobby Breakfast Show. You are joined this week by...
Surprise,
it's the Mayor. He can't remember.
Hello.
And it's also OT. And on this week's episode, we're going to be talking about some Legendary Legions. Specifically...
Didn't give him a chance to say hello there. Just carried on.
He's here. Oh, we're gonna have to redo this now because I can't remember the name of the fucking Legendary Legions.
It's Ugluk Scouts and it's Paths of Druadan.
Yeah, good. Is that good enough? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Excellent, right?
Have that listening.
Right, so news. Not an awful lot to talk about. There was a Warhammer preview which did not have a great deal, but was interesting. So we're not going to spend too much time on it. We're just going to mention the highlights, which were the little goblin boys, fun, little knights. They almost tempted me into playing whatever game they're from, and then I remembered how fucking dreadful and expensive that would be as an experience. And then they also did a new plastic Beastman thing, which is cool. I'm actually considering if we do War Master doing Beastman, so he looks fun. Hopefully someone will make a 10mm version of him. That would be good. Good. The only other thing for news I wanted to mention was, and you two will not give a shit about this, so that's fine, but the company, War Games Atlantic, that make lots of nice plastic miniatures, showed off images of the World War I British sprue that they're going to be releasing in January. I'm excited about that. I will almost certainly be buying them and painting them at some point.
What for?
And, yeah, just for my own interest. There you go. Good. Right, hobby. This is going to be nice and short as well. OT, have you done any?
No.
Good. I have not either. Mayor, over to you.
I painted 4 hairs for my Bros and Badges list.
And he's painted some ones that look like rabbits as well.
Yeah, you're going to do the same
big rabbits. Yeah.
Are you going to do the same bad joke from last week?
What joke? He didn't.
No,
make
because
joke
this
week.
time there's actually going to be a picture of it on the screen for the viewer.
He did the not a hair joke. Do you remember how we laughed? Yeah. So on the screen,
such a cursed episode. Shit.
On the screen, there are 4 hairs.
No, there aren't.
Yes, he sent a photo. He didn't lie this time. He actually painted them before saying he painted them. They look really good. Mayor very modestly is going like all there. They're not that good. They look good. They look good. You even bother to paint the eyes. They're good.
Yeah, the eyes were. I was actually really worried about doing them because it's very easy to very slightly put a pupil in the wrong way and make it look like they're cross-eyed or they're looking in opposite directions or they're really disjointed. But I'll take some close-ups of the faces and hopefully.
I mean, I wouldn't even try. For animal eyes, all I do is black with a tiny dot of white in the corner, just so it's like got the reflection, and then that's it.
That might have been a good shout. But I honestly just didn't even bother thinking about what their eyes should actually look like.
You pretty much nailed the pupils and stuff. Like they're not like cross-eyed or anything, so it's pretty good.
No, I was quite happy with that.
One of them only has one eye, which is helpful.
Two of them actually only have one eye.
Oh, really?
But these miniatures, they're really nice sculpts, and the eyes are very pronounced. Like they're very defined. So I felt like usually I don't bother with eyes, but these ones were nice and big to paint. So
yeah. Well, good. I look forward to us trying out a game. We'll have to try and play it sometime. We should be able to do it like a kill team size board, so it shouldn't be too much effort to sort out. Anyway, good. Right, let's move on to the meat and potatoes. OT hasn't even spoken yet this episode. It's literally been an OT episode.
I said no.
Yeah, but I'm cutting that bit. Good, right. Shall we start with Ugluk or Druadan? I always forgot.
Well, I mean, Mayor needs to make the call.
Let's do Druadan because it's what I've got open in front of me.
Good choice.
So, this, for the people who have only watched the films, is a legion from what period of time, please, Onod?
What period of time?
As in, what's this legion representing?
Oh, it's representing when Theoden's riders are on their way to Minas Tirith, and the orcs have constructed a perimeter kind of force to stop them getting there. And so they go into a forest, and then these wild men who are the Druadan, who are kind of, they're not like they're not like normal men, but they're not like a separate species. They're kind of like Celts, I guess. But anyway, they're described as being like a little bit shorter than the Rohan, but they're not like a separate species. They go, we don't like orcs, so we will show you through this like secret route, which everyone's forgotten about. They show them through, and then the Rohan arrive at Pelennor, having gone around the orc forces. And that's literally the only thing they ever do, and the only time they're ever mentioned. But they get a Legendary Legion.
The reason for that is that they have a condition for the Rohan, don't they? And that's that the Rohan essentially give them the forest and leave them alone forever.
Yeah.
So they're a bit of a strange plot device, but nevertheless, we shan't question Tolkien. So the army composition. So the rules for what you're going to have to take. You're going to have to take Theoden, King of Rohan, who is always the army's leader. It must also include Ganburi Gan and a full warband of Woze's warriors. He's also the only hero that you can include as part of the Woze's warriors. So only he can take Woze's, essentially.
Yeah.
We'll cut that long silence out.
No,
the listeners will be like, fucking hell, my AirPod's broken or whatever.
You always make that same comment every time. Anyway, good. Keep going, yeah.
Okay. Right, I'm just going to see that's all going to get left in now.
Yeah, of course.
Riders of Rohan do not count towards your force's bow limit. So, the army competition. Theoden on armoured horse, so he has to take his horse. Are they all on horse? Pretty much everyone is on horse.
Except for the Druadan, yeah.
Except for the Druadan, which I wasn't expecting. Eomer, Dernhelm, Deerwine, Elfhelm, Gamling, Gamburugan, Captain of Rohan on horse, Riders of Rohan, Rohan Royal Guard with horse, Outriders with horse, and Woze's warriors. So pretty much everyone who ends up being in Riders of Theoden, plus the Woze's. So they've got 3 special rules. Waypoints. At the start of the game, before either side has deployed, this Legendary Legion controlling player may place 3 25mm waypoint markers anywhere on the board. While within 6 inches of a waypoint marker, friendly Rohan models, do not suffer any penalties for moving or charging through difficult terrain. So slightly board dependent, but kill orc folk. Friendly models may reroll 1s to wound when making strikes against orc, goblin, or urukai models. Again, dependent on your opponent. Know all paths. If during the movement phase, models from both sides have declared a heroic move and a roll-off is required to see which side happens first, the force will gain a bonus to that roll. If they would normally win on a 4+, they instead win on a 3+. If they would normally win on a 1, 2, or 3, they instead win on a 1, 2, 3, or 4. So essentially, you just have the equivalent of an Elven Blade for move roll-offs, which is actually pretty good. And the other 2 rules are pretty situational.
Yeah.
What are our thoughts?
So, initial thoughts then. I think the Legion is let down by how situational its rules are in all but especially from a competitive stance. But I don't necessarily think, obviously, because we're not doing it from a fully competitive stance, that we hold that against them too much. But yeah, definitely if you're doing like a pickup game, especially if you're doing like a game against another good army, you're kind of missing out on some stuff there, aren't you?
Yeah. What do you think, OT? We know how much you love the Legion.
Yeah, I think it's my favourite. I think it's, having gone through the other Rohan Legions, I think it's another one that actually is just quite similar to the others, but has a bit of a gimmick. And I just prefer this one's gimmick to the other ones. I just think the gimmick is slightly cooler. I also like the fact that it takes a list that aren't competitive at all in the Wozes and makes them more competitive. I think this is actually the closest you could get to running a sort of semi-legit Wozes force. I don't think it's good, but I think it's not awful. So that's a nice thing. Theme's all right. I think actually it works quite nicely theme-wise, and with the way the rules work, I don't think you're going to be using the Druadan for combat very much, but they're going to be helping the Rohan move more effectively and take more advantage of charges and things. But yeah, it's another Rohan list that's a bit similar but has a gimmick for me.
Yeah. Do you lose the strength on the charge with this Legendary Legion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You still get Theoden's +1 to fight value for those that charge within 6 of him. But you don't get the +1 strength on the charge. So if you're playing against orcs, goblins, and urukai, and there's some difficult terrain, then you're laughing, potentially. But even with that, I don't know. Reroll 1s to wound, statistically, is okay. It's not amazing, is it? Because you still, even if you reroll a 1, you're not necessarily going to wound.
But then they also come with hatred, so I think they get +1 to wound anyway. I think that works for blowpipes as well, doesn't it?
Who gets hatred? Sorry,
the Wozes. They have hatred.
Oh, okay. I'm not too worried about the Wozes.
Yeah, the Wozes do, but you want it on you want it on the cav, don't you? The Wozes, you're only going to have 1 warband.
Yeah.
They're kind of, you're probably going to sit them at the back on an objective or use them to skirmish.
Yeah, because essentially the reroll 1s against orcs, goblins, and urukai is just a far worse version of +1 strength. It's helping you to kill stuff, but it's only helping you to kill 3 factions, and it's not helping you as much as +1 to strength would. And I don't know if that's made up by the waypoints and know all paths rules. Know all paths is really nice because when you're an all cav list, you want to be winning move offs, and it's a massive increase in probability and I think that's really good for the tax of having to take Gambury Gan. Isn't a big problem, but you do lose the strength, so you're losing hitting power for reliability.
I think the main issue that this one runs into is we've been comparing all of the Rohan Legendary Legions to Theoden's Riders. This one is literally just Theoden's Riders, but with some Druadan, and the rules aren't as good, are they?
Oh yeah,
and I think
competitively it's weaker, but I think theme wise, there's more in it, like than Thane.
I don't like the theme of this one.
Oof.
What? What about it don't you like?
They never actually fight anyone when the Druadan are taken through the forest. This is like
I think they do encounter some orcs, don't they? They like say, we've seen that there's some orcs and we've dealt with them or whatever.
Yeah, but they don't like as a combined force. Like
no, they don't fight a pitched battle against someone.
Yeah, it's just like they ride through the night, and they probably kill a few orcs on the way, but it's not like a big kind of like moment. Whilst at least Theoden's Riders, that's like an awesome moment in books and movies. And I think the issue for me of this one is a bit like, if you're going to do a Legendary Legion, I'd rather it's based around a combat
army as opposed to an escort mission.
Yeah, it's like a temporary alliance which doesn't fight. If the Druadan had accompanied them to Pelennor Fields, fine, but they don't. They just stay in their forest. So it just almost feels like it's a bit kind of. Somebody likes Druadan at GW.
Yes, for sure.
Like,
I feel like there are definitely more worthy situations for a Legion to be made for.
I mean, for Rohan, you could have done one for Earl the Young.
Yeah.
Which probably
otherwise you're not taking him, are you, really?
You could take him at low points. Him and his riders at low points would be fine. But not at bigger points.
You could have done one around the wolf attack, like how you themed your Rohan.
I think that was a big miss. I think that would have been.
Isengard exists. Like that did seem like a really odd one.
Yeah, I would have easily taken that over this, because this again is so close to Riders of Theoden. You know how they did Riders of Eomer, where it's almost trying to capture two different situations. One where they attack the Uruk-hai at night, where you don't have Gandalf because Gandalf's not compulsory, and then one where you have Gandalf and they're coming down the hill. Well, why don't you have Riders of Theoden, but you could take Woses with that, and then it becomes Path of Druadan, and then you can take you've got another 2 pages for a Legion, and you do the wolf attack. I don't know.
But there you go. That's the way they did it, isn't it?
I like the rules though. The rules are fluffy.
Yeah, the rules are fluffy. They're quite fun. I think the move off things like quite an interesting thing to do.
Yeah.
So it's
another unique rule. Like, and it's another like I think the one thing we praised Wolves of Isengard for having was it was unique. Like they weren't very good, but at least unique.
And this actually is good. I just don't think it's worth the trade-off you're going to get with other legions. So it's essentially, how much do you want Woses?
Yeah.
And
there's a problem with wanting Woses that we can.
They're expensive as fuck.
We'll get onto that later when we go over the lists and building the forces. Should we quickly run through then the Ugluk scouts?
Yes, we shall. So for this one, you've got to take Ugluk, and he's always the army leader. Only Orc hero models may lead Orcs, and only Uruk-hai models may lead Uruk-hai warriors. So you can take Ugluk, obviously. Malher. How are we doing, Malher? Malher?
I've always gone Merher, but that might be wrong.
Right.
M-Dog.
Grishnak. Snarger. Snarger being the new, I say new, newly introduced comparatively model. The Uruk-hai Scout Captain, Uruk-hai Drummer, which is important. Orc captains, Uruk-hai scouts, and Orc warriors. So quite restrictive on army composition, but I think, as we'll see, that's pretty much made up for by their rules, if not more. So they have 3 rules. Their pace is quickened. If your army includes Merher, then any Uruk-hai scouts in your force may upgrade to Merher's Marauders rather than just the one in his warbands. This upgrade is free rather than costing 1 point per model. Additionally, Ugluk, Uruk-hai scout captains, and Uruk-hai drummers increase their move to 8. So something that wasn't before possible is now possible. Not only that, but it's free and it's not restricted. So you can have it on your drummers, your captains, and on Ugluk. So all of your Uruk-hai are now moving 8 for free. I mean, if I could trade that out for like the normal Isengard special rule, I would straight away. Make haste to Isengard. Friendly models gain the woodland creature special rule. So that's everyone. And then animosity. This is the important one. Friendly orc models gain +1 to wound in the fight phase if they're involved in the same fight as an Uruk-hai model. And then it's the same for Uruk-hai models if they're in the same fight as a friendly orc model. Now, this doesn't include spear support, so they've both got to be in base contact. But +1 to wounds is probably the best buff you can give someone to fight, I would have thought, as opposed to +1 strength or any kind of reroll.
Yep.
Yeah.
And +1 fight or anything like that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, +1 to wound on strength 4 models and strength 3 models is really good, I think. I think it encapsulates the fluff of the OT's cringing. Come on then, let's have it. What?
No,
does it not encapsulate the fluff of the moment?
It's fine. It's just they didn't work together. So why should the bonus?
Well, they all died at the same time. That's
well, no, but so they didn't like each other. So why did they get a bonus for being in the same fight?
I think it's more to encapsulate the way they sort of egg each other on.
It's meant to be that they're being like competitive with each other,
well,
but
so
OT's right. It does reflect as being. It looks like they're working together and helping each other.
Shouldn't it be that whichever faction has less kills gets +1?
That would be very imbalanced.
Really strong.
Yeah.
What?
That would be too strong because this one means you need 2 models in base contact.
Okay, then +1 strength or +1 fight or something. Because like
I suppose you could do +1 strength, but
That's
then
boring,
it is more boring.
+1 to wounds, like, oh yeah, let's like try and actually do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
It
also encourages you to actually bring both, because the issue is that if you didn't do that, I think this Legion you just wouldn't bring the orcs, and if they didn't, because you just have the move 8 Uruk-hai, you just spam them. Whilst doing this means that you are actually encouraged to balance it out and bring the warbands orcs. So I get what you mean. The rule isn't completely reflective of what happened, but it does achieve the goal of creating 2 forces that have to work together, even if they don't want to.
And this was first time animosity was the thing, wasn't it? This was the first book where it became, and it clearly it was successful because it got reused at least once later on.
They tweak it, so it's been refined a few times. But yeah, they've used this idea now in a couple of other legions.
So the designer's notes for the +1 wound is that we also represent the animosity shown between the orcs and the Uruk-hai. So between the orcs and the Uruk-hai. I don't really know. You're right. It almost doesn't quite make sense that they're trying to kill something that's in front of both of them competitively, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
like as a way of linking the factions, I think, and from a balance point of view, I think it's done really well. I just don't think the theme is quite there. Like I think with the what the bloody hell is it called? I think it's like Defensive Erebor Legion, where you've got like Brand and Dane or something, where they get +1 to wound if they're in the same combat. Like that makes sense because they're working together, whereas this doesn't make as much sense. But from a balance point of view, it's done really well. So it's not a bad thing.
Yep. In terms then of this Legion and obviously the different components, it's got a few things which really work in its favour. It's one of the cheaper ones to get into if you want. Yep. I know you're looking at me, OT, with that face. It depends on how many heroes and what heroes you want. Because this one could be, you could buy a blister pack of Uruk-hai, and you could buy a Grishnak, the old metal one you find on eBay, which you can probably pick up for about £8. And then you just need 2 plastic infantry boxes, which are the most effective way to get models in this game. And then you're kind of done.
Yeah.
And like, but obviously
you need Ugluk, Malheur, Grishnak, and then just orcs and a drummer if you can be bothered.
Yeah. So that really works in its favour, and it's quite effective. It has some real weaknesses, which from a competitive point of view, I think are a good thing, just to kind of stop this being like, because this could be like quite a, I imagine like if they'd given this Legion like more buffs, I could imagine this being like really obnoxious.
It's already pretty close to being obnoxious because everyone has 8-inch moves. It's an Uruk, and they get the drum, so they're moving 11. They're moving faster than Cav.
But
at
least it's got pretty severe weaknesses to magic.
Yeah,
and it's got quite low defense, so it feels like it's in a good place balance wise.
Also, it doesn't have like a really big hero, which is quite nice. Like it is it's just lots of like fairly, I wouldn't say elite troops, but fairly solid troops and like good mid-range heroes. But it just has lots of dudes, and like they're going to be effective because they're like wild wargs, but with more defense.
Wow,
more fight.
It is one of the more competitive legions. I have seen it do extremely well in tournaments.
I can imagine that like around like 400 or 500 points, this just being like so good. Maybe not so much later on when like you need.
I think it's just as good later on, to be honest, because at higher points you still outnumber your opponent, but you outnumber them to a higher degree, and you can start to afford the nice things like the drummer.
I'd actually say at higher points you're more likely to start to be able to use your special rule more effectively.
You've just got more guys.
You've just got more guys, and you could kind of with this army like just roll up a flank, couldn't you? Because if you just like if you do an overload on one side and you just get +1 to wound, you are just going to then start chunking through their army.
The other nice combo is having the Uruk-hai bows and the drum, which means they can move 5.5 inches and still shoot, which is something I've seen used.
Yeah, because they're only 18-inch range, aren't they? But then if you're moving 5.5 and shooting, that's almost 24 inches anyway. So you're losing out on very little.
Yeah,
and you're going to be able to skirmish for a long time with 5.5 inch move too.
Yeah, if you need to, but yeah, you can definitely. If you don't want to fight something, you can just kite it. So yeah,
and unlike the other army, this one it does feel a lot more fluffy in terms of it's a much more substantial moment. These guys should be used as Lurtz's scouts.
Yeah.
Like
have we done Lurtz's scouts?
No,
next book.
I was getting ready to be slated because we apparently did do it, and I've forgotten.
We'll save our rant on Lurtz's scouts, but like this is the same army. It picks up the orcs. They're like the big chase scene with the 3 hunters, and they have the fight with obviously Eomer's guys.
Fight in inverted commas where they lost 2 people.
But actually, if Eomer's and this one were to match up, it would be like the complete reverse. Like I think it wouldn't be completely one-sided, but given that the Uruks are moving further than the horses, I think you might have a few issues.
It would be pretty one-sided, I reckon. Yeah, but
It's bullshit that they move 11 inches further than Cav.
Well,
That is a lot.
but that's only with a drummer, because you could put a
they
drummer
can't charge.
in regular infantry, and then they're almost as quick as Cav. So,
But then also, I think a lot of your heroes have March as well, don't they?
Yeah.
And most of them are 3 might, so actually you can afford to drop a few
But
might on.
The other thing is, obviously, if your Uruks are moving 11, but
Your orcs are moving,
aren't, and
moving
you
6.
need to move them together. So arguably, that's why you take a lot of Urukai crossbows, because they move the same, or half an inch different, to the orcs, and they're keeping up with the orcs, but they're shooting. So yeah, swarm over them. So price-wise, I mean,
Yes.
I was just thinking about the Druadan,
Yeah.
and I would have thought surely it's basically the same as Riders of Theoden, but worse because of the Druadan, who are probably very expensive, I imagine.
Well, GW don't make the Druadan models anymore.
They don't make them, so they're insanely expensive, is what you're
They
saying.
Very expensive, absurdly expensive.
it's
the cheapest I could
£100 or something.
Yeah, the cheapest I could find, like an actual Druadan sculpt on eBay, people are charging like £8 a model or something.
Okay,
So if you want 15, that's £120.
Yeah.
so it's probably, is it the most expensive Legion then?
I think it's hard to label it the most expensive because of GW not making the models, but like, essentially yes. If you wanted to run it, it's basically this or Ruffians that are by far the most expensive.
I'm pretty sure last time these sculpts were in print, because they're all metal, they were charging around £40 for 12. And obviously you get the hero, the Guri Bang guy. That's
Gun, Bury Gun.
That's what I said. It's still pretty expensive.
Is it though?
I don't know. I said something that vaguely sounded like it, like on a syllabic level. So,
but
sure.
I don't know. I think GW not making the models anymore is like massively detrimental to like the ranking of this Legion.
Why would you make the Legion when they're not even selling the models?
Exactly. It's fucking stupid. Like
they sold the models at the time,
and then we're like, nope. So yeah,
I
don't know.
They're some of the ones that have been rotated out, because they do this rotation thing where every 6 months it seems to be they bring back some metal models and they take some out.
They're actually the ones on eBay selling their own metal models. Just they're like creating their own price hikes.
No, yeah, they do. People buy the made to orders just to put them on eBay because they know that those models won't be available now for years. And so eventually somebody will have to fork out £20.
But I'm saying that I think GW are those people who are on eBay selling the models for £100 or whatever.
GW employees, maybe if they're smart. Yeah.
There goes our chance for GW sponsorship. Fucking hell.
I don't think they sponsor anyone.
They gave Zorpazorp about.
They give people free stuff.
Yeah, they gave Zorpazorp like
to review and stuff.
No, they literally gave it to him. Like,
right.
He's uploaded a video today. He's got like, I think it was like 100 sets of the Ithilien terrain and the heroes and stuff.
Jesus.
Like, not even kidding. It was like a pile this big on his desk.
100. They said it like.
No, they genuinely. Go and check it out.
I saw that video too. It was like 12 or 100.
No, go and watch the video. It's out today. Look at the stack of stuff on his desk.
Yeah, but that's like what he's been sent for like the past year or something like that.
No, it's just a massive pile of stuff they sent him all in one go. Well, I don't know. I'm choosing to believe him because he seems like an honest guy.
I'm heavily doubting what has just been said.
Well, you're cynical and bitter, so nobody cares.
I am, that's true.
Right. Ugluk Scouts is very good value. It is the 6th cheapest Legion to make.
Wow.
It is less than half the price of Paths of Druadan.
It did make me want to do Ugluk Scouts because I don't know if you two remember, but when we did War of the Ring, I had loads of Urukai Scouts.
Yeah.
And they were painted like trash. So I ended up selling them all. They were really bad. It was when I used to use like the green flock for all their bases. It was really bad. Anyway, it makes me... Huh?
It's an iconic look.
What would we change about these then? I mean, to be honest, I feel like the Path of Druadan could have done a better job at making a competitive force more consistent.
I mean, my honest answer to Path of Druadan is just like the Ruffian. I don't think it should exist. Is the simple fix. If we were to fix it, though, I think the main issue is it's just too... All of the rules are too reliant on something happening. Like, there's no consistency. Because even the heroic move off, like, I know that statistically you will lose a priority at some point during the game, but like technically even that one might not happen. Like the chances are very low, but you could end up in a situation where you don't have a heroic move off and it's just another pointless rule. Like, well, the opponent might just look at it and just go, I'm just not going to bother spending my might points then. And I get then that you are getting something, but it's like it doesn't feel that satisfying then if they're just going, yeah, I'm not going to spend my might points.
I think the waypoints one should have just been, so instead of having markers where people get ignore terrain, they should have just said everyone just ignores penalties for moving or charging through difficult terrain.
But I like the theme of the markers. I like the theme of the markers.
But it's still themey.
Think about the practicality. What are the odds of your table having 3 pieces of terrain that are 12 inches across? That are difficult terrain. What are the what table are you going to be on that has 3 of those? And let's say you are on a table that has 3 of those. What are the chances of them all being in important places that your riders are actually going to go through?
I'm not convinced having a waypoint. Like, I don't remember waypoints being mentioned in the book. It's just that they're being led through here, right? So, I'd say just do that. That's an easy upgrade. Keep the +1 strength when you charge, instead of the kill orc folk, or just do it as well as reroll 1s and +1 strength on the charge. That would have made this way more competitive.
And I think that what's he called?
Gan.
His warband should be able to deploy like the Hobbit.
Or
because then
they pop up in terrain, do they, or on a board edge?
Terrain. Pop up in a board or something.
I would have. I think there's actually a possibility for like something animosity style in this, like if a Woses and a Rohan warrior are in the same combat.
Doesn't seem very likely that they'll be together, though.
Well, but that's the thing. But I think that might incentivize you to at least get them to work together, because I think what we said at the beginning was that actually you might just end up having the riders riding around and then just stick the Woses on objectives.
But then you've got to compare that to what they would have had by default, which is +1 strength on the charge. So it's like you still get that, but only if there's a woes in that combat with them, which seems like a downside.
If they're getting +1 to wound, that's better than +1 strength.
It is, but you have to have a woes there, and you like being able to charge with Cav means you're more than 6 inches out, or more than whatever your opponent's move distance is. But you can't do that if you also need a woes for every rider of Rohan that you're charging in. You won't have the space along the front line, and the woes just become a tax where you need them to get a bonus that's only a little bit better than what you would have had without them. All I'm saying is, I think there's a way that you could do something like that, but maybe there's a way of doing it that isn't as directly comparable to what you would have got by default. I don't know what that is, though.
No. I'd also have given Theoden and Garn a special rule, because I think the whole idea is that they're trying to get to the Pelennor quickly, so I've called it like hasten to the Pelennor, and like each of them can call a free heroic move or heroic march once per game, and I think that'd be quite nice and endearing.
That's really nice,
because I don't think that's game breaking, but like I think it would just it would be more themey. Because currently I like it because I think it makes Woses more competitive, but it comes, I think, at the cost of making Rohan much less competitive. Maybe I'm looking at it from like that perspective. But yeah, it's it's just no one's going to build this Legion, are they? Because GW don't make the models. So it's like I genuinely can't ever see this rocking up at like a tournament or anything. Like I don't understand why anyone would bring it. So and that's a shame.
Yeah.
It, as you say, I think actually the more I talk about it, the more it just feels like a bit of a waste because like I just don't know why anybody would bring this unless they really loved Wozers, and you can't buy the Wozers, so that even gets rid of like.
And it's a weird thing to love anyway because they're not.
It's
in
like
the movies,
loving.
which
It's
makes
like
it hard.
loving. It's like loving ruffians, isn't it? We were like, actually, who out there is like, I need a ruffian force in my life. Let me spend 300 quid.
The Ugluk Scouts then. I feel like personally, their rules are. The special rules are good and balanced, but if we were to change things, what would we change?
I would put in, you know what Legolas and Gimli have, where they compare the number of kills. I would put that on Grishnak and Ugluk, because I think they're Grishnak's leading the Orcs, Ugluk's leading the Uruk-hai. So I think whichever of them has less kills gets +1 to wound. That's kind of copying a bit what Barad-dûr has with.
Would giving them +1 to wound be a bit much, considering they might already get +1 to wound if they're.
But I also have nerfs. Oh, so I made because it's meats back on the menu is this one, isn't it?
Meats back on the menu, boys. Yeah.
So I've made a rule for that.
Why didn't they name that for one of these?
Well,
rules?
that's the thing. I was like, it should.
It's like the most iconic line in all of Lord of the Rings.
Exactly. So I was like, if you have an Orc and an Uruk-hai in the same combat and they lose, okay, I'm going to lose you here. So
no, this is going badly.
Stick with me.
They're not fighting each other.
Are you going to say the Uruk-hai kills the Orc?
No. If they lose, they take a courage test. If they both fail, they will strike at each other before enemy strikes.
Think how much
they both fail. What are the odds? Tell us the odds.
If they both fail, well, they're both. So Uruks are courage 3 or 4, I think, and Orcs are courage 2. So the odds of them both failing is it's less than 1 in 4. It's probably about 20%.
So 1 in 5.
Think how slow the games would be. Oh, I've just lost a combat. So right before this elf warrior attack, I now need to roll 2 courage checks. If I fail them both, I now need to do a separate fight between them, and then the elf gets to try and kill the fucking orc.
I don't think they then have a fight. One of them would just hit the other, right?
Yeah, they make strikes. They make strikes.
They both make a strike against it. They still get a +1. Do they get a +1?
Oh yeah. They're kicking the shit out.
No, I love the idea.
Yeah, exactly, but it wouldn't work.
I don't.
The other option is you the other option is you roll a d6, and on a 1 they fight. They make strikes at each other or something, or they get knocked to the ground maybe because it represents them fighting each other. Because I think there should be a downside to them fighting together as well as an upside, because they did attack each other, they did fight each other, like.
Just say they can't use each other's stand fast or something.
That's boring though.
Yeah, but it works something more straightforward to accomplish the.
Can you just have -1 defense for them both if they lose? But then it's like a downside that almost doesn't represent what's happening enough for it to be justified, and just seems like a downside for the sake of it. Then.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
it's annoying.
It's tricky.
The fact that we can't come up with a realistic better version.
What about they can't benefit from heroes' heroic abilities unless?
But why is that meats back on the menu? They should be ripping each other apart and eating each other, not like, oh no, I'm not going to stand fast.
They kill one. They kill one orc, and it's because
they would have killed.
Or if Aemma hadn't rocked up.
I don't think so. No, they kill one orc because he tries to take Merry and Pippin. It's not like a big war thing. The other orcs just let's just leave these Uruks to fucking do what they're going to do because they're scary.
I think what they should have done is potentially instead of the animosity rule, they could have had 2 Urukai Warrior Scouts. Urukai Scouts are equipped with Merry or Pippin as a light object. Okay. And they become a banner. So you've got 2 free banners in your force.
Sorry.
What?
This sounds already quite complicated, but yes.
You've just got 2 free banners. Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe if your opponent like kills one of them, as in the Urukai, not Merry or Pippin, then they get. Oh no, we can't mix victory points in this, can we? No. I don't know. Help me out here, guys. Carry on this train of thought.
Well, why don't you just say they're a banner for Urukai whilst the Urukai have them, and then they can pass them to an orc, and they're a banner whilst the orcs have them to orcs.
Yeah. Is there a way we could mix in like the orcs versus Urukai into the fact that Merry and Pippin are there, like how they're fighting over Merry and Pippin in the movie?
They each want Merry and Pippin.
But I don't know how we'd work that into a rule. I'm just thinking they're cool sculpts, they're cool models. It's part of how Urukai, the Ugluk Scouts, like their DNA almost as a snippet image in time. I just think it's a shame they're not used in some way, but I don't know how you would use them. Maybe that's why they've just gone with this.
Yeah, a bit more straightforward. Maybe there's a reason.
Yeah.
Should we have a look at our tier?
I would like to propose my change to Ugluk Scout.
I've still got a couple.
I just assumed that we'd given up.
OT, you can finish because by the sounds of it, you've just created a new legion.
Yeah. Because I don't like this one. So I thought I'd just change it.
I do not like this one. Okay, yeah, keep going.
Also, there should be something to do with like whips of the masters, because isn't that something Legolas says? Where he's like, "Oh, they're running real fast." It's like the whips.
Well, that is
they do run real fast.
Their pace is quickened. That's why everyone gets 8-inch moves.
You're saying they should get another +2 inches?
No, they should get a special rule where Ugluk and Grishnak only on the first turn of the game can call a heroic march for free.
I mean, they're already pretty quick. I don't think. Why would you do that? Not just buy the drummer.
Well, no, but so it's free. So maybe at lower points you don't need to have the drummer. You could just have them calling a march.
True. I think at lower points, if you really needed to move around, you just use the might point.
Well, yeah, but then you don't have to use a might point.
Yeah, I think it's fine. It's not. It's fluffy. It's a buff.
Yeah, exactly. That was what I was thinking. Because like my meat's back on the menu, which should exist in whatever form it ends up looking like, was a nerf. So I thought I'd put in a little buff for them to make up for it.
For meat's? Sorry, go on.
There you go.
I was going to say for meat's back on the menu. I just had an idea. Essentially, that is already encapsulated by Ugluk's head taker special rule. So he kills an orc, and then he gets a 12-inch stand fast. But you could potentially migrate a similar rule to this. So maybe in the same way that some characters expend will points to become a banner for the turn, he can kill a model and create a 6-inch banner for the turn. I think that would be really cool.
He should kill an orc, and everyone within 3 inches should get +1 to wound.
They might already have +1 to wound.
And then get rid of that rule.
No, I like the animosity personally, but I see how him killing a guy for them to eat would make them more ferocious in combat. That's my question.
Maybe they were hungry.
But why are they fighting the enemy more if there's a meal behind them?
Because they want to eat the enemy.
So they need to kill faster. So they quickly... Is that
Right,
okay?
So what's happening here is that OT was earlier quibbling with a rule because it didn't make sense thematically and you said it was fine. And now you're quibbling with a rule because you don't think it makes sense thematically. But again, like...
I just think it shouldn't be... I don't... Well, actually, you know what?
If he kills one and it becomes a banner, why is that any different from +1 to win?
Yeah, I'm being a hypocrite. You're right.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, but I just think the +1 to wound doesn't interact well with the rule that already exists, which I would leave in. But if you're taking that rule out, then that's fine.
No, I just like that you can get +1 to wound and have him be a banner. I just wanted to include the theme of meets back on the menu somehow. But you're right. It doesn't make sense for them to fight harder if he's, or maybe it's less of a there's a meal and more of a I will kill you if you do something wrong. So
why don't you have it that if Ugluk kills an orc, the orcs fight harder because they're scared?
Oh no, he can kill whichever one he kills fights harder. So if he kills an Urukai, they would fight harder. If he kills an orc, they would fight harder.
There you go.
Fight harder in what way? Plus fight value, plus wound, what? Banner?
They can move 3 inches further.
He's just alternately killing an orc and an Urukai so they can move faster.
Yeah, maybe not +1 wound, +1, maybe +1 fight or something. I don't know.
I still like the banner. I think it's more consistent because +1 fight isn't going to be useful against certain factions.
Yeah. But
whereas the banner's always going to be useful.
Some kind of buff for the faction that he kills because they're scared and they don't want to die.
But I think that rule would make them too good. Maybe replace it with no, woodland creatures are good. They don't really go into the wood though. I'm not convinced that they're woodland creature.
Yeah, but woodland creature doesn't really matter.
I know, that's why I'm thinking replace woodland creature with the Ugluk.
That's too good to replace.
It probably is, yeah.
The only change I would make to this Legion is I think that the animosity is not perfect, but I think it serves the purpose of representing 2 different forces that have to work together. Leave everything as it is. The only thing that I would like to see is add to the list of things that the Legendary Legion can take the Orc Tracker profile. And then I think that...
There were no orcs with bows.
What, in the film you didn't see an orc with a bow? Did you?
Which means it wasn't there.
Like, it's fine. The orcs in the books that are with them are specifically tracking orcs. They're like orcs that are really good at like tracking stuff. And I would say that if Snagger is in the army, orc trackers get +2 to their move.
+2?
Sure.
Because then it gives Snagger a reason to be in the army, and also it means that your orcs can keep up with your Urukai.
Snagger is better than a captain, but
only the shit orc trackers can keep up with the Urukai. That would be the only.
Orc trackers aren't complete shit. They're alright.
They're not good. No one takes them.
They're not great.
I'm not saying they're good, but like they're not awful.
They're pretty awful.
But then again,
they're defense through.
Yeah, but then you're getting like
bows that can move 4 inches and still fire. Like,
yeah, so that's what I'm saying.
No, because trackers hit on a 4+.
Oh, well, that's better, but still pretty bad.
But I like the idea that you give Snagger more of a purpose. Yeah. You include a profile which doesn't get used a lot.
I don't think it's
more flexibility to the orcs of their movement because the trackers can actually keep up with them.
I don't think it's a fault of the Legion though. I think his profile is just bad.
No, that's fine. But I'm just saying this Legion could therefore make him more usable.
Yeah, but I don't think it's necessarily on the Legion that you wouldn't take him. I think the Legion is fine, but it's not.
No. But what I'm saying is that Legions can fix bad characters. So if you give him a purpose to be in the Legion, he might be worth taking.
And I like that aspect of. I think it's the reason I've got the soft spot for the passive Druadan is that they take something that is not used in the rest of the game and give it a reason for people to buy it and collect it. Like, I think that's why I was so annoyed at the Ruffians Legion, because I think that was an opportunity to make Ruffians, which you're almost never taking, I would imagine, more competitive. Like, it's almost like they're like balance fixes in, I don't know, like Rocket League or CSGO or whatever. Like, if you're putting them in, you can like make things better or worse if you need to.
Are there many balance fixes for Rocket League?
Well, we yeah. I mean, my ping is enough of a nerf for us sometimes.
Yeah. Shall we run over some potential starting lists then?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Me, isn't it? Right, I'll talk. Right. Passive Druadan. You it's quite funny because I thought Garn was Fortitude and he's actually Valor. So you have to take Garn and 15 Rose's Warriors.
You don't have to take 15, do you?
You have to take a full warband.
Do you?
You have to take a full
Warband.
Hold on.
You did read this out about an hour ago.
Fuck, it is a full warband.
It is a full warband. So
Okay,
some would say
carry
that's,
on.
some would say that's 200 points and about £180. Well, I mean, who's going to notice? So there's 200 points.
If you think about it, actually, when GW sold 12 of these in a pack, you'd have had to have bought 2
You
of
got
those.
really fucked over. You got so fucked over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then to be honest, you have to then take Theoden. So I would just put in Royal Guard with Throwing Spears as the rest of it. The other option is Riders of Rohan. As you start to get more expensive, you'd probably put in Daewine, Dernhelm, options like that. But yeah, I think actually you end up just building this list basically like Riders of Theoden, but with the 200 points of Woses in there, which isn't great. But there's just no like motivation to take the Riders of Rohan because you already have like the Woses for skirmishing. So the one advantage the riders have, I guess, just kind of goes away.
Well, they got movement over the Woses, but the fact you have to take 15 Woses, you're right.
Yeah.
It does kind of incentivize just Royal Guard at that point.
Yeah.
And then that just makes it more expensive.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Like, I think I did put together a cheaper version of the list, which was like, Theoden, a captain, some Riders of Rohan. But like, that's just not how, I mean, for the one person who's going to run this.
At that point, you might as well take Riders of Earmare, who do much better job skirmishing because they get Gandalf's Blinding Light.
Yeah. And that's my list for Paths of Druadan. Then moving on to Ugluk Scouts. To be honest, it's pretty straightforward. You just build it like a fairly normal Uruk-hai list, as far as I can tell. You would just use Scouts, who are fine. You need to get Mahur in, because otherwise you don't get the bonus. So I think even at very low points, you have to put in Ugluk and Mahur and Grishnak. I think we already said that's what you build the list around. Further up, you probably stick with your strong Uruk-hai contingent, and then I think you always run more Uruk-hai than you do Orcs, just because you basically I think all the Orcs are essentially doing is giving you the combat buff rather than like actually being a force in themselves.
I mean, they'll do stuff when they're there, but the main reason they're there is to support the Uruk-hai.
Yeah, so
I'd actually give quite a few of them shields, just so if nothing else, they can just like hold up the enemy a bit better. Try and get as many with bows in as you can on the Uruk-hai Scouts, because moving up to 5.5 inches and shooting is really good. Probably a couple of banners in there as well, just because you are going to be in combat, so you do want a couple of banners. But yeah, it's Ugluk's is really good value, because I think it might be a bit boring to paint, but actually like a load of Uruk-hai Scouts, a load of Orc Warriors, and then some fairly cheap heroes. It's pretty nice.
Boring to paint, but with Uruk-hai you can kind of make them as simple or complicated as you want. Like if you want to paint some little white hands on their faces and stuff, you can do. So yeah, they're a good force to paint if you've just started painting as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've got options, and they're cheap, and they're good to build. Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about ranking, then should we start with Scout? Because I think they're going somewhere. Me and Mayor want them to go somewhere. You want to say what you think they are, Mayor?
I think they're fantastic. I think
I do too.
They hit all areas of the hobby. We could barely think of a rule that could be better for them, and I think that hasn't happened on any of the legions really. I think they'd be a great one to collect. They're really easy to play. They're competitive. They hit all of the areas, I think.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree. I think that you don't need to change anything about them. They've got good balance to them from a competitive standpoint. They're good to collect. They're, just good in all areas. I think that they have to go in fantastic. OT, would you now like to quibble, or are you going to bow?
Well, I mean, it doesn't actually matter what I say, does it?
Well, no,
if we're doing average, then if you say whiff, then it'll go in good.
Oh,
because you'll just put it in fantastic anyway and just ignore me. Like my opinion's not relevant here.
Give us your argument as to why. Give us your argument as to why you don't think they're fantastic. Because I think listeners need to understand why you don't think they're fantastic, because they are fantastic.
Okay. For me, it's just solid. Like I just don't think it's fantastic. I don't think it does anything exceptionally well. I think it does everything okay, but I don't think it does anything exceptionally well. And on that basis, like I just don't think it's as good as the ones that are in fantastic. And I think it's closer to the ones at the top of solid than it is the ones that are in fantastic.
So
I think
I guess
better. Like, compare it to Range of Athelion. This one is just better than Range of Athelion. You've got to.
I don't think it is.
It is.
It really is. Compare it to Assault on Helm's Deep. Like, it's got arguably the same, if not better, unit variety. It's better cost wise. It's easier to paint.
It doesn't have better unit variety. You can take trolls, ballistas, bombs, all that stuff.
Okay,
in Helm's Deep.
I retract that.
It's got better hero variety though, with special rules.
Yeah, this is true. Well, tell me what you think is worse on this than it is on Helm's Deep.
So unit variety, I think, is better in Helm's Deep.
Okay.
I think there are more obvious misses in this, in rules wise, than there are in Helm's Deep. Like, I don't like the army bonus. I don't like animosity. I don't think it captures what they're trying to do. I think the fact that like Grishnak and Ugluk had no rivalry element going on is just a bit of a miss. The fact there's no meats back on the menu, boys, where it's arguably one of the most like iconic quotes from the Lord of the Rings films, is ridiculous. Like, they should have at least tried. And like, yeah, I don't know. I just think there are too many things that aren't there. I'm not. By the way, I think this is still like one of the best legions, but I just don't think it's as good.
I feel like
fantastic.
I feel like variety is unfair when we've put the Spooky Boys in fantastic, who don't.
But then I think Spooky Boys has cooler heroes.
I think that's more of an opinion thing, to be honest.
This does.
Cooler isn't like variety. Like, you didn't say that. They were
a bit stuck for choice on Ugluk Scouts, aren't they, really? Like, they couldn't be like, oh, I don't know, guess Rascu was there, or just.
But then, like I'm not saying you could have put in the Orc Trackers or something, and they didn't.
I don't think.
Yeah, but that was quite a niche choice for me, just because I thought that would be interesting.
He's being picky. That's what it was.
So you're now arguing against yourself in order to beat me.
I was saying,
how fucking contrarian are you?
My point was, it's a very good legion. I didn't want to change anything, so I was just saying the only thing I do is I just add in a unit, because at least then it's something. But my point is that you guys were coming up with all of these complicated rules, and animosity captures the idea of two forces that don't like each other, and I appreciate that it does not do so perfectly. But as we were finding out, if you try and create some sort of bullshit rule where they might accidentally kill each other.
No, that was for meats back on the menu. That wasn't animosity. That was meats back on the menu.
But that is a trash rule. I'm sorry, but that would be awful to play. Imagine having like 20 orcs, and every time they're in a fight, you have to do that. It would be a nightmare.
Okay, so then just keep track of the total kills from each side.
But then that's too powerful. And there's
move it to +1 strength, and whichever side has the fewest kills. I think that's more themey than the current version of animosity.
I feel like animosity rewards you having to merge two armies where they move at different speeds, and it rewards your skill as a player in being able to get overloads where you get 2-on-1s and you have to think carefully about your moving. What you're proposing works on a legless gimme scale as a fun theme rule, but on an army-wide rule, it just becomes a case of really kind of boring stat keeping and just going like, oh, I've killed another one, let me note it down. And you just have 2 like numbers, and I don't think that that's actually that fun. I think that at that point, people then start going, oh, this is too good. They're just getting stuff and there's no skill. They just take their orc bows and they've already picked up a few, and then they just have a load of orcs with spear who then can take advantage of the rule. Like,
but it's in base contact. The rule is so you want to get.
It is now. It is now. But if you make it just a number thing, then suddenly you just say, okay, yeah, the guy with the spear, I'll roll his dice first. Oh, the orc killed him. Well, that's convenient.
Oh, but I would stick with it as base contact. Like, it wouldn't just be for everybody.
What happens if an orc with a spear kills someone? Then it just doesn't get added to either number.
You lose the game.
I think the problem is that they've done it. The way they've done it is okay. There might be a better way of doing it, but the fact we can't come up with a better way of doing it says to me that they've probably thought of a lot of ideas for this.
But we're idiots.
This is their job.
Well, at the rate we were making our Rings of Power profiles, apparently we're the professionals. So,
but Honoured, in all fairness, Honoured was really, really bored and has nothing better to do with his time.
yeah, well, I had to bring all of my shit up to his standard instead of being meme profiles. So, anyway, regardless, I think
bit of salt there. Bit of salt. You can hear.
I think they've done really well with the Legion with what they had. Okay, I don't think
try and turn you against each other in my bid to make this solid. No, you genuinely you can put it fantastic if you want to. I just think it's top of solid.
I think if you're saying top of solid and we're both saying fantastic, we put it at the bottom of fantastic.
Yes.
Yep.
That's fine.
I think I'd have been happy putting this further up fantastic, so bottom of fantastic is fine.
Yep. I'm happy with that.
Okay, so the other one.
Now
Legion. It's great Legion. I'm being slightly contrarian, but it is a great Legion.
Let's talk about Druadan.
Yeah.
I think OT should go last or first. What do you think?
I think you'll be surprised by what I have to say, so you might want to put me first, but I don't know.
I think it's pretty last. We're going to be surprised.
I'm not going to say fantastic.
I'm going to say average. I'd put it above Shire, but below Gothmog. I personally, this is for me the worst Rohan Legendary Legion by a way. It's just Riders of Theoden, but more expensive, less fun theme, shitter rules. It's got arguably like barely anything. I would even say that this is one of those Legendary Legions where I don't think it's worth taking over just the Alliance, because I think I'd rather have +1 strength than all of those shit rules.
What is their Alliance? Is it green?
Green. It probably is green.
Green.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at this point, it's getting towards whiff, but it's just not good.
So, what's your verdict?
I would say towards the bottom of average. I think it's just above whiff, just because it tries something a bit like Wolves of Isengard that's different, but I don't think it can go above that really. Nah, what do you think?
Well, after listening to you talk about that and the fact that it's so expensive and essentially pointless, I'm actually going to go in whiff.
Okay, there's one for whiff and OT.
It's bottom of whiff.
Bottom of whiff, and this is your favourite Rohan Legendary Legion.
It's literally the fact you can't buy the models. Like,
okay,
if we're talking about a Legion, we could recommend other people go out there and collect. This is at the bottom because there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee you can get the models, and for that basis, it can't be anything else. Like,
I don't really want to defend it too much, but if we trust GW, which is a big if, if we trust GW with the rotation system, these will be available at some time in the future
There's
when
still,
the podcast is out.
How much was it?
Oh, it will still be expensive, but what I'm
You
saying
have to buy 2 boxes though because it's
Yeah,
15.
Because it's fucked.
But when they re-release it, they might release them as 15. We don't know that.
They won't.
They won't.
They won't because it's cheap.
It'll be genuinely. It'll be packs of 3. I reckon. I think
That would probably be better cost-wise than 2 packs of 12.
But they're not going to make that much money on it because only about one person will ever want to build this, and they've probably already built it. Is Bottom of Whiff a bit harsh to put them below Ruffians? I don't think they can go below Ruffians.
But you can't buy the models.
But they do something that's at least... But by that definition, like quite a lot of these legions at the moment have had their stuff phased out since we started talking about them. You can no longer buy the models for the Grey Company, for example, and we put them above Ruffians.
But you can use the Ranger models.
Not the plastic Rangers.
Yeah.
You can, sure, but they're not the models.
But what are you going to use instead for the Druadan then?
I could use whatever models I want if I'm going to proxy.
Well, as long as they're roughly the same height. And
Sure.
they're GW models.
Sure.
What model is that? What's a GW model? It's like Woze's.
You should use...
He's got no ideas. OT,
Mahad Warriors?
no, they're too tall. OT, I think I like that you stuck to your guns because you insisted that Riders of Theoden goes in solid because of their cost. And considering it's allegedly your favourite legion, I think it's very big of you to have voted so lowly.
Without the absence of models, I think this is in solid, personally.
It's not.
I think it is. 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 But yeah, it is the very last legion I would recommend somebody to go and buy. And
I think we should just remember we don't automatically drop down just because it's expensive. The reason that Riders was in solid and not fantastic is because solid is for things which are very good, but there is something that's wrong with them. Whilst fantastic, there is nothing wrong with them essentially. And then average is there is something about them which might appeal to people over the regular army list. And I'm willing to concede that you might argue it's better, like some of the other ones we've got in Whiff, that it's you just collect them outside. But I don't think they're bottom of Whiff. I think that they're better than Ruffians. I think that they're better than Grey Company. Maybe we put them below Men of the West, though.
I don't know. I think it's just such an interesting case by itself, where like there you in currently right now as this is being recorded, you physically couldn't collect this legion.
No, but arguably that's true of other legions too, as I was saying. If you want to be pedantic.
But I don't think
This isn't being pedantic. It's that like half of the army isn't available to buy anymore.
Sure, but that's true of other armies.
But like which ones?
I just said
it's a great company.
You can
Rangers.
proxy for proxy. You can proxy for Rangers.
You can't proxy the banner guy.
Halberad. Yeah, but they still
Make Halberad.
No, they don't.
They do.
They don't.
Dude, there's still ones on
Go-
England.
Go
Don't
look.
go find them on the webpage.
What's the model I'm looking for here?
Halbrand.
Brad.
They won't. They don't sell them anymore.
Halbrand.
He got phased out like a month ago or 2 months ago.
Right, so it's
They
going
don't-
with, is it? Or is it
They
going in
don't-
average?
They don't
It's
sell.
something average. It's in Whiff.
Can we just establish that they don't sell Halbrand? Do they?
I don't think they do.
Can we say Halberad, not Halbrand?
No,
maybe that's why it didn't come up. to me.
Halbrand. They don't sell Halbrand either, though. The only thing they sell currently are the Plastic Rangers. They don't sell the Druadan. They don't sell the Grey Company. They never sold Grey Company on horse. So your entire argument is pointless there as well, because you'd have had.
No, but you can't put Grey Company on a horse
No, you can't.
in that army.
You can in the regular army list, though.
I don't think you can.
In the Legion, which is what we're talking about.
Okay, no, not in the Legion, but you can in the regular army list.
I don't think you can. What, Rangers?
Yeah, you can. He is
Rangers?
He is correct. You can in the yeah.
They don't have a real model.
Ranger of the North, options horse, 10 points.
But they don't have a model.
Yeah, they don't have a model.
But then they also don't have a model for like Grima on horse or Lindir on horse. Like
That is true.
Option. Yeah.
Fuck you, Games Workshop. Making profiles for models you don't make. Bullshit.
Yeah. But yeah, I think it goes in with. I really like this Legion. I've got a soft spot for this Legion, but it has to go in with, I think.
So it's in with.
Can take a horse. Lendil can take a horse.
Oh, yeah.
See, if they can make all these profiles that don't.
And Gilgalad.
Why don't they give Grimbold a horse?
He doesn't deserve one.
No, he
Why?
hasn't earned it.
He's a bad man.
Also, he needs both.
Hands for his axe. It just fall off.
True.
That is true.
So where are we putting them? I insist they go above the Ruffians at least.
Sure.
Stick them between Lord of the West. Men of the West and Grey Company.
Okay. That seems fair.
Yeah. But it is such a huge deal. You can't buy the models. I think it's ridiculous that they've made a Legion and then literally said you can't buy the models free.
It just feels like such a pointless Legion as well.
Yeah, it does. Like, even as somebody who really likes it, like I can't understand any scenario where you'd actually want to collect it over like a million other things in SPG. Because there's so much cool shit in SPG you could do, and to reach the point where you're like, yes, now is the time for Woses and shit Theoden's rights.
It's because somebody liked them. It's because they're a meme.
Oh, it's the reason Ruffians exist, isn't it? Somebody at GW was like, this is a cool idea, we should do this.
Yeah. Well, it's made the tier list a lot more kind of like level now.
Yeah.
We've gone from like literally 2 weeks ago, it was overwhelmingly everything was solid, and now it's much more spread out, which is good.
Yeah.
So there we go. Right. Are we doing Legendary next week, or are we doing the Rings of Power profiles?
I think we start the Rings of Power stuff.
Rings of Power profiles.
It's going to take at least 5 episodes.
It's going to take so long. It's going to take so long.
Essentially, then, next episode, we're going to be showing some fan-made Rings of Power profiles, because Games Workshop aren't going to make them.
Yeah.
And no one else is, because it was shit. But due to some unknown reason, my boredom being the main one, we made some for fun. It was actually more fun making the profiles for them than it was watching the show, I think.
I really enjoyed like making the dwarf profiles. I really enjoyed.
I think
I'm gonna struggle for the Harthoots because they're all just related to Norrie, and I don't actually know their names. But apart from that,
got IMDb. Yeah, so I found the names.
Looking forward to it. Lenny Henry's rules are going to be spectacular.
200-point hero. Big time. He survived being stabbed. The guy should have like 10 fate.
But yeah, I think we'll do.
I think Dwarves and Numenor. I think
Dwarves and Numenor next episode.
Numenor.
Yeah, we're not gonna like run through like the profile and like read them off. We're more just gonna like discuss the concept and things, just as some fun. Just some harmless.
Yeah, just as some casual fun as we launch our
light fun as we chainmail to a fucking 3D printer. Force him to create these models.
What I'm saying is, if Patreon and OnlyFans don't work out, we need a third revenue stream, because I need to retire soon. I'm really tired.
True. Need to get that fucking pension in. Come on. Oh dear. Good. Right. Wow. That was an episode.
Right, goodbye, everyone.
Off.
Fuck off. Have a shit week.
Jesus Christ.
That was directed at us.
Nobody's listening. It's just us three re-listening to the podcast at this point.
What is happening?
That was Mayor's reaction to thinking, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to sit and chat about those shitty made up from 2 hours next week.
I'm
Have a
literally.
shit week.
I might just listen when we record next week. I'm just going to pretend I'm a listener. I'm just going to listen to the podcast. I'm going to let you two chat it out.
Oh my days. Well, I, for one, am looking forward to next week's podcast, and I hope you join us then, listener. So you have a smashing week, and I'm really going to miss Mayor's presence as he's off in one of his mind palaces.
I'm going to be there. Don't you worry.
No, you won't mentally be there. Is the point I'm making? You will
I'm never
physically
mentally
present
there,
in
OT.
Literally never meant.
I'm not sure this is releasable. I think actually we might just need to not put one out this week. I'm not sure it's redeemable. Ding our bell.
Ding it. Ding that bell.
Have a shit week. Ding our bell.
Bye.
Fuck off. Have a shit week.